Hey, what's good? It's Cadillaktrackz. Today's quick tip is quick tip number 107. Today's quick tip is in reference to a video posted by a fellow subscriber and friend, Mr. Leo Pugat. Appreciate that. I made a comment on his video, and in his video, he shows how to use the lock feature as a tool for arrangement. And as you know, Machine has different lock features. You can even look at this video right here for different lock modes and states. And what it does and what it means is that, in one mode or one lock mode, I could have, certain sounds soloed or muted, or certain effects bypassed or enabled. And then in another lock mode, I could have, the opposite, different sounds muted and soloed and different effects bypassed and enabled. And I could switch between those different modes at the push of a button on Machine. And one thing Machine doesn't let you do, however, is arrange or record, lock mode 1 and then record it into the arranger or the sequencer. So you can't switch between the lock modes and make an arrangement and record it like that. It's just the live mode, meaning that when you push the button it switches, but you can't record that automation unless you do a workaround. And in Mr. Leo Pugat's video, he actually figured out a workaround using the Loop B tool. Loop B is a internal MIDI port for your computer. And using the Loop B tool, he's actually able to arrange the different lock mode states in this video right here. So make sure you check out this video. I'm going to go ahead and post a link to it here in this video. It's what inspired me to make this quick tip. But I'm going to go ahead and dive into it. I just had to make sure you're familiar with the background of it. It took me a long time to figure this one out. I had to go on the internet, and it's not as simple as using Loop B if you have Machine as a VST plugin, because when Machine's is a VST plugin, it doesn't give you MIDI options. They're not available. If I go up here to File Preferences, there are no MIDI options because the MIDI options are all contained inside the host Fruity Loops. So I had to do a little digging and reading around, but I finally figured out how to do it, and I just want to make a video to show everybody how to do it inside of VST mode. Now, I set up 3 different lock states on my Machine right now. This is just a regular drum kit with a regular pattern. I loaded it up with the pattern so that I would play some drums. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to push play, and I'm going to show you the different lock modes. So I'm going to push play. And I'm going to switch over here. I'm going to switch over to lock mode. I have 3 different lock modes. So I just went ahead and enabled lock mode. I'm going to push lock mode pad 1. When I push pad 1, I just have the kick solo. So let's push play in here, pad 1 lock mode. Alright, then I had a pattern 2 or lock mode 2. In lock mode 2, I have these 4 sounds going, the kick, snare, and these hi-hats. And then I have lock mode 3, which is this. So by pushing the button on the Machine, I can switch between these different modes. It's just basically different sounds soloed and muted. But I could sequence the beat out, or if I already had the beat, I could put some quick drops in it and stuff like that. So to be able to do that on Machine inside the VST mode, all we have to do is actually, I'm using a MIDI out just like I did when I went ahead and I sequenced the Fruity Loop sequencer of the Machine. Using the MIDI out, what I noticed all we have to do is actually set this to the channel. This is actually set to channel 1 because on channel 1 is where it receives all its MIDI inside the Machine. We had to actually set this up using the controller editor, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the controller editor. But once I set this to channel 1 and I put it on the same port that my MIDI is received inside the Machine, meaning that when I click on Machine, you can actually see I actually have the input port on 8. So we went ahead and we put the channel on 1 and 8. And inside the Machine, we have to enable this an option right here to go ahead and to change. Right here it has this little screw bar right here. If you click on this and you go to MIDI change, it'll actually let you know to change the scene sections or lock snapshots via MIDI notes or program changes, enable one of the more options. That's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to change the different lock modes at the push of a button so that we could sequence them out in a playlist or a piano roll. So all I had to do was go ahead and put this on channel 1, put it on the trigger MIDI note and enable. And when I went on the internet and I did a little bit of searching around, I found out that if you're actually reading right here, or I went onto the Machine website, I actually don't have the post linked up right here, but I found out that when you do it this way, it actually starts at C-2 Machine doesn't go to C-2 inside of its keyboard, so you have to use the controller editor to get to C-2. So I opened up the controller editor. This is my custom template. This is how I made the custom template and how you can make it. You spend a lot of time inside a controller editor assigning program changes and MIDI functions specifically. That's why it doesn't work with the studio, because look, if you go to the studio, it's got a different layout, bro. You would have to, I could put the buttons wherever I wanted them to. So it doesn't work for studio unless you take the time to map the functions to where you want them on here. I don't have a studio, so I didn't do that. But on my Maschine MK3, I have everything mapped out on my custom template. So we're gonna go here, and what I've done is I actually created different lock modes on the buttons on my Maschine custom template. That way when I push the button, it actually goes ahead, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna show you. If I go to assign, you can see that I have it on the same channel, channel 1. That's the channel that we specify for the MIDI to come through. And here it lets me specify the note. Once again, I said it has to be on C-2. Maschine doesn't go to C-, it only goes to C-1. If you want to get to Maschine to get to C-2, you have to open up controller editor and do so right here. And then the last thing is the values. The values have to be set for each different lock mode state. So for the first lock mode state button that I wanted to assign, I went ahead and put the value at 1. For the second one, I'll put it at 2, and for the third one, 3, and so forth. That's how I went ahead and used the controller editor to link up these MIDI assign changes at the push of a button. It doesn't have to be done this way. It can be done inside of the piano roll inside of your DAW also. For example, this is the DAW right here, and once again, I said that I have this MIDI out here. It's going into channel 1, so it's actually sending notes to where we want these MIDI changes to occur. But once again, as we mentioned, it starts at C-2. I'm gonna open up the piano roll on Fruity Loops, and in Fruity Loops, the C- is actually C0. So in Maschine, it would be C-2. On this device or on Maschine inside of Fruity Loops, it would be C0. So if I put a note here at C0, what that means is that it'll trigger lock mode state 1, and then it goes up 1 note from there. So if I put a note here, that would trigger lock scene 2, and then so forth. I could trigger lock scene 3 and lock scene 4, just like that, by placing the notes here. I'm just gonna push play. You can hear the kick. Let me just put this up here. So you can hear lock mode state 1 going right there, and I'm sequencing it out inside of Fruity Loops piano roll, and then lock mode state 2 is about to enable right here. So this is the way that we can sequence it out inside of the piano roll, sequence out different lock mode states, and then lock mode state 3. And all I did is those steps that I just showed you. Might be a little advanced, so just make sure you watch the video and check it out. Big shout out to Leo Pukat for thinking about this and coming up with the way to do that. But once again, I said you can go ahead and sequence it in the piano roll. I set it up on the Maschine template, and you can set it up on your template, so that I can actually push the lock button instead of clicking it in here. So I could actually push record and just push the lock state I want. So I want 1 there, then 2, then back to 1, and then 2, and then 3. And so as you can see right there, I enabled step mode, so it recorded on every step, and you can see that it's switching between the lock modes at the push of a button, since I set it up to the button inside a controller editor. It's a good thing to do inside a controller editor. That way you only have to do it 1 time. Anytime you switch the Maschine on, it'll always be there. You know, it'll always be set up for that function. So shout out to Leo Pukat. I hope this doesn't go over anybody's head. It took me a long time to figure that one out, but it's really simple. You just need to make sure that everything's on the same MIDI channel, like this MIDI channel 1. It's on the same MIDI port that's receiving audio, and from there, make sure that the key is C-. It's going to be C-2. That's going to be at the very bottom of your keyboard, so make sure that you enable the note at the very bottom of the keyboard. And lastly, make sure that you click on the MIDI change right here and put it on the channel that you wanted to specify those MIDI changes at. You can do this for scenes, sections, or locks. Alright, this is Cadillaktrackz. This is Quick Tip 107. This is how to use the lock feature as an arrangement tool. And this is a big shout out to Leo Pukat for coming up with this one. Make sure you check up to my or check on my 100 quick tips inside of Fruity Loops. I break it down how to use Maschine and Fruity Loops together. Also, check out my custom MK3 template. This is kind of advanced here, so I can understand if you have to watch it a few times, but it's kind of simple too. You're just programming MIDI changes and MIDI lock mode states. You can get real creative with that, so check it out, do it. Cadillaktrackz 1.